Welcome to the GetRealWealth.com radio show, where wealth means a lot more than just building a second stream of income. Listen and learn how 70% of the millionaires in America used real estate to create a lifestyle that most people only dream about. A lifestyle that includes good health, family, romance, travel, charity, and all the other parts of a balanced life. Now, here is your host, real estate investor and mentor, Steve Davis.
Good afternoon and welcome to the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I am your host, Steve Davis, and as always, we're here talking about leading a more balanced life by being more successful, really financially. But we're talking about all the parts of a balanced life. It's family, it's fitness, it's relationships, it's the joyful things that make life worth living. Now, yesterday was a holiday, and I ended up just the whole show answering email questions, which is fine, but I never did get to the subject that I promised everybody when we posted on Facebook and all the social media, and that is I started with bad credit and no money, and I want to explain how I did that and ended up with 4,000, invested in over 4,000 apartment units. It comes down to this simple rule. It's that, and this is Stephen Covey, he talks about how working harder, getting more formal education, getting more motivated, all those things that people think are going to change their life only works if you have the right map to begin with. In other words, if you are doing more of the wrong things, if you're getting more of the wrong education, and you work on your attitude, and you have the greatest attitude in the world, and you're highly motivated, it doesn't matter. All you can hope to do is get to the wrong place faster because you're on the wrong map. You don't have the correct strategy. I'm trying to think of a word. It's not just the word map, because that's what Stephen Covey uses, and it's not just the map, it's so much more. But the map represents all those different things, and that would be your attitude, that would be your education in the effective things, that would be working a little bit more, especially at the beginning, until you reach a point where you don't have to work more. All those things are important, but only if they're the effective things. And I hate to use this, what I'm about to say, as a secret, because one, I don't believe there's any secrets out there. There are no secrets. This last 2 years, I've spent time at the library. I spent massive amount of time on the internet studying and documenting all this material, and it's just not a secret. It's out there in literally thousands of books. Now, the reason people can call it a secret and get away with it, and people are like, oh, I get what you mean, that's a secret, it's because it's not taught in our formal educational system. The high schools don't teach it, and almost all universities neglect to teach it as well. There's a few out there, I'm sure, that do. But it's the simple fact that you're supposed to have two streams of income. And everyone is taught that you only need one. That you just go get a job, you climb the corporate ladder, you depend on your job for your income, you depend on your job for your retirement, you depend on your job for everything. And that just doesn't work. 95% of Americans fail to retire by age 65, fail to retire successfully. A lot of people are retiring. In fact, there's 10,000 baby boomers a day retiring, but the vast majority of them are retiring a burden on their children or a burden on the government. They can't pay their bills. But they retire anyway. That I don't understand. And then 20 or 30% continue working. And then, of course, 36% are dead by age 65. Oh, my Lord. The golden years are really terrible. They are not the golden years. They're the worst years of your life. Retirement is not what it's cracked up to be. It's a big lie. You want to live now, enjoy now, stop putting it off. You know, I get so irritated with financial planners because they're always talking about how much money you're going to have when you're 65. I don't care. I don't want to be rich when I'm 65. I want to be rich now. At 27, I said, I want to be rich now. And I began reading and taking the action steps to be rich when I was young. So what were those steps? Here's a kid, 27 years of age, bad credit, no money. How did I become a real estate investor? There were two vehicles that I used that allowed me to eventually become a real estate investor, and these are actually not real estate investing techniques. They involve real estate, but they're not investing, and that's a big misconception. Those two are wholesaling. These two tools are wholesaling and flipping. See, those are not investments. Those are earned income. They're taxed as earned income. There are ways to get around that, by the way, and we'll discuss that on later shows when I bring some experts on for you. But as a rule, you know, they're earned income for most people. It's not investment income, and it's taxed as such. Rental real estate is investment real estate, and that's everything from single-family houses to apartment complexes to commercial buildings, strip shopping centers, storage is another example, storage facilities. All those rental properties, that is an investment, and it's taxed as an investment, much lower than the earned income from wholesaling and flipping. Well, the group that I was involved in doesn't teach this anymore, but at the time, I was studying it so that I could teach it. And I was reading every set of books and CDs or tapes at the time that I could get. I bought Carlton Sheets, I bought Tommy Vu, I bought Dave Delgado, the Milams. I bought every set of books and CDs that I could get, and I studied and studied and studied. Then I got a hold of a book called No Money Down by Robert Allen. No Money Down by Robert Allen. And with those, I think it was 10 or more systems, I was able to cultivate the best ideas from them. And the way that I did it is I looked for things that were in every set, ideas that were in every set. And when I did, I found certain concepts that every one of them said worked, so I assumed they worked, and that was how I ended up developing my program and my strategies. All right, we'll talk more here on the GetRealWealth.com radio show after the break here on AM 700 KSEV. Did you know that 70% of the millionaires in America used real estate as their main investment vehicle? You can and should have some real estate in your portfolio. This is Steve Davis, host of the GetRealWealth.com radio show. Starting with bad credit and no money at age 27, I began investing in real estate. By 30, I was retired. I will be explaining this at a free 2-hour introductory workshop this month. If you would like to attend, go to GetRealWealth.com. That's GetRealWealth.com. Thank you for listening. Welcome back to the GetRealWealth.com radio show, where we're talking about how I started, and this was 27, almost exactly 28 years ago, how I started in the real estate. And again, I called it investing back then because I thought it was, but it's really not. It's wholesaling and flipping. And then about at the end of my third year was when I started actually investing, which was too slow. I kind of got addicted to flipping and making those big chunks of money, and it seemed like I was doing the right thing, but it wasn't. Flipping, if you flip for more than a year and you don't start buying some real assets, you're making a mistake. If you've been flipping for more than a year, you need to really think about what you're doing. Are you going to flip till the day you die? Is that your strategy? It's not a very good strategy at all. But here's what I was doing. Again, I was reading every set of books and CDs that I could get, listening to them over and over again, gleaning off the best ideas, finding those strategies that were consistent among all of them. And that's what's in our really 1.5 day class. Our product at Real Wealth Academy is a 1.5 day class. We call it a 2-day class, but it's really only 1.5 days. Everything that I'm discussing here is explained in detail in that 1.5 day class. And all the strategies that I gleaned off of these programs is in that 2-day class. So the first thing that I did was wholesale, because I didn't think I could flip. I thought I needed money. I thought I needed perfect credit and things like that, which that turned out not to be true. And I'll explain that in a minute. But what I did was I would go out and I cultivated a group of about 20, 30 agents, real estate agents that knew me by name, knew what I was looking for, and would call me when they found a distressed property. Now, why would an agent call you when they find a distressed property? The first thought that comes to mind is, well, and I've had agents say this to me, and it's doggone hilarious. An agent, I will call certain agents, and as I'm prospecting, and say, hey, if you find a deal, that's 50 cents on the dollar because it's got massive deferred maintenance, let me know about it, and I'll write you an offer usually within about an hour. And I'd have some cocky ones go, well, if I find a deal like that, I'll buy it myself. I go, really? How many houses do you own so far? Well, I don't own any. See, I could detect immediately this person was full of it and not a good prospect for my team. They're just a jerk. So I'd let them go, call the next one, until I found 20 or 30 agents that did understand what I was doing. They were kind, they were hardworking, they were trustworthy, and they would call me when they found these deals. And they would call me, and I'm using really broad numbers here. I don't think I ever bought a property for less than 50% of its after repaired value, but I'm going to use the 50% to make the math easy to understand on this show. It doesn't have to be all the way down at 50%. If you look at the deal I discussed Friday, that was only about a 70% purchase price. Yeah, that's about right, 70%. So it doesn't have to be all the way down at 50%. But for ease of understanding, let's assume that I'm going out and an agent calls me and says, look, I've got this $200,000 house, ARV, after repaired value home, that you can get for $100,000. It needs $40,000 worth of work. Now, do you trust a realtor to tell you how much work needs to be done? Absolutely not. You've got to get your contractor out there to bid it. You need to know the exact real number so that you can sell it to another investor. One of the big mistakes that wholesalers make is they use the number that the realtor gives them, or they use a number that they make up. They don't have a bid for it. Totally wrong. I always had a written bid for the rehab. Now, they didn't have to use that contractor that I got the bid from, but at least they knew ballpark what it was going to cost them. So I had a little more credibility than the wholesalers who were just throwing numbers out there. Yeah, I think you can get this done for $40,000. Well, what are you basing that number on? I walked the property. Okay. See, there's no confidence. You're not giving the buyer confidence. But when you walk in and say, look, here's a bid from Joe Contractor. This may be high, it may be low, but it's going to be around here. He's committed to do all this work for $40,000. Well, in my case, in most cases, it was a little higher than whatever the realtor told me. Sorry, realtors. I love realtors. They're great people. But a lot of times they don't know. They've never flipped houses. They really haven't done rehabs themselves. They've heard about it a lot, so they kind of think they're an expert. But until you've done something, you're not an expert. You've got to go through it and experience it to really be an expert. And so let's say he said 40. Sometimes, though, and I'm going to use this example with this case study, sometimes it came out below. Why? Because I can get things done cheaper because I was a member of a real estate investor group. I could get things done less expensively than someone else. Say somebody that's just out there and only does 2 or 3 houses a year. I'm in a group where these contractors are doing dozens of houses a year, so they can give lower prices because they're doing so much volume. So in this case, I get a bid for $30,000. My realtor's estimate was $40,000, so I'm ahead $10,000. I then write an offer on the property subject to, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I said that wrong, and or assigns, excuse me, and or assigns. In other words, in the buyer's name, I'm writing Steve Davis and or assigns. I'm giving myself 5 days to come up with the earnest money. But why am I doing that? Because I don't have the earnest money. Remember, I'm broke. Is the seller taking any risk by signing that contract? Absolutely not. People will always say, oh, no seller would sign that. They will if they have a brain. Because if I don't show up on the 5th day, or let's say I write the offer on Monday and say I'm not going to come up with the earnest money until Friday, and on Tuesday someone comes in and wants to write an offer, let them. If I don't show up on Friday, just sell it to them. They don't take any risk at all signing that agreement to let me have it till Friday because they can always take a backup contract. And some sellers don't understand that. They can't grasp it, and you're going to lose your deal. But in this case, I don't think I had that happen more than a couple times over 15, 20 months that I was wholesaling. Maybe I wholesaled for a little over 2 years. Yeah, probably about 2 years. I only had it happen a couple times. Most sellers went, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, if somebody comes and writes an offer tomorrow, I'll just take it as a backup, and if you don't show up on Friday, I'll just sell it to them. So they take zero risk. Now that I've got the property under contract in my name, I then go back to my list of buyers. Now, this is important. I'm switching to step 1. This whole time I've been talking about step 2, locating the deals. The reason this is step 2, that is step 2, I should say, is because you have to have your buyers first. This is a huge mistake wholesalers make when they first start out, and they can't understand why they're not succeeding, and they can't sell their properties because they skipped step 1, which I'm about to talk about. See, I had a list of 35, 45 buyers that I had collected at different real estate investor groups. And when I went to those real estate investor groups, I would pass out my card, I would network, I would meet people, collect business cards. At each event, I maybe picked up 5, 10. But after 10 events, I had 35 or 40 buyers. Some of them had cash, some of them used credit. But I had 35 or 40 buyers. When I found a deal, I immediately went to my list and started calling them. Caller number 1, do you want this? No. Caller number 2, do you want this? No. Prospect, I should call it. Prospect number 1, you want this? No. Prospect number 2, you want this? No. Prospect number 3, no. 4, no. 5, no. 6, I'll take it. Okay, boom. Get over here. Let's go drive by the property. We drive by the property. I have in my possession a little thing called an assignment contract. an assignment contract. Remember, the contract is written Steve Davis and or assigns. I'm going to assign the rights to that contract to this buyer, and they're going to put up the earnest money. Is this making sense? You see where the earnest money comes from? Have I put up a dime? No. Have I used my credit? No. I and or assigns it with a $10,000 plus. In other words, I've got it under contract for 100. I'm going to get it the assigns contract at 110, so that at the closing table I get a check for $10,000. That's a wholesale deal. It's not complex. It's not difficult. And I did it in my part-time while still working 40, 50 hours a week. And I was doing that once, twice. Sometimes my finder's fee were $40,000. Sometimes my finder's fees were $15,000. You know, it ranged from $10,000 to $40,000 depending on the size of the deal. No credit check, no money. See how I was able to start doing something? Even though it wasn't investing, I was doing something to get my feet wet in the real estate field. When we come back, I'll teach you how I started flipping houses without using my own money or credit as well. All right, this is the life... God dang it, I am so sorry. This is the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis, here on AM 700 KSEV. Thanks for listening. 70% of the millionaires in America used real estate as their main investment vehicle. Listen to the GetRealWealth.com radio show to find out how you can do it too. Saturdays at 9 a.m. right here on the Voice of Texas, AM 700 KSEV. Welcome back to the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. If you've got a question for me, you can email me. Now, I'm trying to get through this material because I didn't get through it yesterday when I promised people, so I'm not giving out the phone number. But if you want to email me, I'll answer your question right after the radio show. It's asksteve@getrealwealth.com. Asksteve@getrealwealth.com. So now we're talking about how in the world did I flip houses, which usually requires either credit or a lot of cash. The way that I did it was very, how do I put this, rare. In other words, what was happening is I was wholesaling, and every once in a while, a deal would come through that was already in perfect shape and 70 cents on the dollar. And what I would do is one of two things. The first one was owner financing. I would tell people that I could pay them cash in 30 days, and I would get the property under contract for a owner finance, and they would owner finance it to me. Then I would go and market it retail. Now, this is much more difficult than selling. I don't know if I want to say that. I was going to say it's more difficult than selling to investors. Investors can be bears. But if I've got a list of 35 or 40, if anybody gives me any garbage, what do? Just go to the next person on the list. So for me, and my past experience, dealing with investors was easier, a little bit easier than dealing with owner-occupants. The reason I say owner-occupants are a pain is because they're emotionally involved in it, whereas a good investor is not. The homeowner likes the chandelier, and they like the wood floors, and they like the kitchen, or they don't like the kitchen, and this is not right, that's not right, and it's all ego-based stuff. To me, that is much more difficult than dealing with an investor who's just looking at the numbers. It's just A plus B plus C plus D minus E. It works or it doesn't work, and they do the deal. Whereas with retail buyers, owner-occupants who are buying the house to live in, there's so much ego involved. Is it the right up-and-coming neighborhood? Oh, that's the other one that's funny to me. People who try to pick neighborhoods that are going to go up in value. Hilarious. Gambling, that's all it is, gambling. Go buy a house where you're happy, where your friends are, where your family is, and enjoy it. This is irritating, but a home is not an asset. A home is a liability. Your personal residence is not an asset, it's a liability. This is Robert Kiyosaki, if you want to read more on this. It's a liability. It's just there to serve you and your family. Don't try to buy a house. Don't force yourself to move into a neighborhood because you think it's up and coming and makes you look good and all this ego-based crap. Go where you're happy, near friends, near family, or whatever the situation is. But again, that's why to me it's much more difficult to deal with owner-occupants. I would then market the property to owner-occupants. And I usually did it, and some of you this is going to drive you nuts when I tell you this. I had a realtor who was phenomenal. He could find buyers so fast. And why? Because I was going to sell it 5% below market. I would take, and by the way, I took the average, not the high. I was going to sell it 5% below the average. Why? Because I had it under contract at 70%. So I was making 25% or thereabouts. Is that right? 70, 95? Yeah. I was making about 20% because I had closing costs and things like that off the deal. So if it was a $200,000 house, boom, I made $40,000. If it was a $300,000, I made $60,000. If it was a $400,000 house, I made $80,000 on that flip. And I made close to $500,000 last year flipping. So, because I didn't have anything else to do. So, there are ways to do all of this with no money and no credit. Let me talk to you about the easy way to flip, though. The easy way to flip is if you have good credit. This is so much easier, and you can find so many more deals, because what I just described was very rare. I would find, let's say, 40 deals, wholesale 10 of them, and then flip 2 of them. The rest of them I didn't have time to do, or they weren't good deals, or whatever the circumstance was. Does that make sense? So it was probably 5, 6 to 1 that you find a deal where it's better to wholesale it than it is to flip it. But when you do find those flips, go on and flip it. You're going to make a lot more money than you would just wholesaling it. But if you've got good credit, there's a thing out there called a hard money loan. And not everybody knows about this. But what a hard money loan is, it's a high interest loan that you use for 2 or 3 months and switch to conventional if you're going to hold it as a rent property. And the longest I ever held a hard money loan for a rent property was 2 months. So do I care if I pay 12% interest for 2 months? I do not, and here's why. Because that deal was 0 down because of that hard money loan. How many deals can you do for 0 down? See, they not only gave me the money to purchase the property, they gave me the closing costs and the rehab all in one loan, up to 70 and occasionally 75% of the after repaired value. So if you can buy the property for 60 cents on the dollar and put 10 cents in it to rehab it, 5 cents for closing costs, that's 75 cents. That's a 0 down deal. Again, how many houses could you flip this year if each one of them were little to 0 down? Now, my average out-of-pocket, by the way, on the last 20 rent houses I bought, using hard money loans, was about 18 to 20 grand. So they're not all 0 down. But if you take that $18,000 down hard money loan, if I'd have used a conventional loan, it would have been literally $60,000 out of pocket. So I love hard money loans. Be very careful. When I said 12% interest, some of you shut down mentally. You go, I would never. It's just the principle of the thing. I'd never pay 12% interest. Sorry. Even after paying the 12% interest for 2 months, I made $80,000. You go about your life not paying 12% interest, I'll take the $80,000. So be very careful of worrying about that. Look at the overall structure of the deal. Look at the money you're going to walk away with at the end. And hard money is one of the greatest tools in your arsenal for being able to buy rent property for low down payments, or to be able to flip properties for literally zero down. And of course, you can buy rent properties for zero down, especially in the down market. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. In the down market, it is very common to find multiple zero down deals in the same doggone subdivision in the same month. I know, because I did it. So the hard money loan is a very, very valuable tool. The other reason you don't use conventional loans is because they won't give you a loan on a house that's beat up as bad as what we're buying. We're buying houses that need $20,000 to $40,000 in rehab. Normal conventional loans are not going to give you the money to go buy those. Now, do we occasionally find deals that only need paint and carpet, things like that? Sure. That happens quite often. So don't get me wrong, but I would not run my life off of deals like that, because they are more rare. It's going to take you longer to get to your cash flow goals if you only do deals that require little or no rehab. We call them turnkey, meaning the minute you buy them, put the key in the door, turn the key, and you're ready to lease it. Turnkey deals, yes, they're out there, but I don't believe that anybody can run their entire investing career off of just those deals. Look at, again, the last 20 houses that I bought. I think 2 of them were turnkey. The other 18 required 15 to 25. What was my highest rehab? I think my highest rehab was 32. So $15,000 to $30,000 in rehab. But I don't care. That's an easy thing when you've got a contractor you trust. I literally, Enrique's my contractor, I literally hand him the keys. I close on the deal. I've already got his bid. I hand him the keys and a check for half on the day after closing. 2 weeks later, he calls me and says it's done. That's the first time I look at the property, other than when I was buying it. First time I look at the property since buying it. I drive over there, inspect everything, give him the punch-out list. He finishes that the next day. Then I write him a check for the other half, and I'm ready to refinance it into a conventional loan and lease it. And in Greater Houston, I'm leasing in a week, maybe 10 days at the most. If you've got a property that doesn't lease in 10 days or less, you can bet you've either overpriced it or you didn't rehab it properly, and it's a piece of garbage that nobody wants to lease. So make sure that I always rent right at the average for the neighborhood. People will say, but Steve, you just rehabbed it. You got the nicest property in the neighborhood. Shouldn't you ask for the highest? No, because it might take you an extra 2 weeks or 3 weeks to lease it. You lose a month's rent. Then your average for the year goes down $100 or $150. No, go with the average and then raise the rent at the end of the year up to the highest, whatever you can get. Be careful that you don't raise it so much that you lose your tenant. Tenant retention is very important. We'll discuss that on another show. But wow, I've gotten far away from talking about how I got started. But those are all things that you should know about this business. So again, I started off wholesaling, which required no money, no credit. I was able to flip a few homes here and there using no money and no credit. But by then, my credit was getting good. Banks were willing to take a chance with me. And I eventually was able to start using loans to flip and, of course, make a lot more money. All right, this is the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis, right here on AM 700, the voice of Texas, KSEV. Did you know that 95% of Americans fail to retire by age 65 and 36% are dead? The good news is that here at the GetRealWealth.com radio show, we know what the other 5% are doing. 70% of them own real estate. We are a mentoring group for new and experienced real estate investors. We will show you how to build a second stream of income that will allow you to retire at any age. I will be explaining this at a free 2-hour introductory workshop this month. If you would like to attend, please go to GetRealWealth.com. That's GetRealWealth.com. Welcome back to the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. Remember that you can email me right now any question that you have about anything that I've discussed, especially if I went too fast through a particular idea. I'm looking at an email here right now where I'm not going to answer it right now, but I can tell that I went too fast on one subject. It was not the subject of the show today. It was something that I covered in addition, but I will email you. So if anything I said you didn't understand it or I went too fast, email me the question and then I'll email you back. And these emails come directly to me. I don't have an assistant answering these. These are real. It's real email directly to me. It's asksteve@getrealwealth.com. Asksteve@getrealwealth.com. So you've seen how I have started to be able to have some money to save. So I started saving about the end of the third year. I kind of woke up because all my friends had rent properties by then, and I still didn't have any. I was still buy, fix up, and sell, buy, fix up, and sell, buy, fix up, and sell, or wholesale, or whatever. And I realized, man, these guys were building that second stream of income, and I had done nothing to build a second stream of income yet. So at the end of the third year, that's when I started buying rent property, and I got my first one about a month after I decided to. And where did I get the money? You got it, from flipping and wholesaling. And I used that money to start buying rental property. But I ran out of money. So what did I go back to? Flipping and wholesaling. And then I got some more money, and then I bought some more single-family rent property. Then I learned about a thing called syndication, where you form a partnership, and you get members of your group or friends or family to put up money. Now, this is very, very complex. And you can get yourself in big trouble. I'm talking jail time if you don't know how to do this properly and follow the rules. But I learned how to syndicate, and I pulled groups of people, other members of my real estate investor group, family members. My mother actually bought an apartment complex with me, a little 22 unit that retired her. And the reason it retired her, and the reason I'm not putting down retirement like I usually do, is she was at the beginning stages of Alzheimer's, and she needed that money, and she needed to quit her job because she was becoming incapable of doing the job. Very sad. That's the worst disease ever. I've never seen anything like it. They literally forget they have the disease. Think about that. How brutal is that? Who invented that? Nice guy, whoever he is. So in this case, I went from single family, just purchasing little single family rentals, to purchasing small apartments. 10 units was the first one, 22 units was the second one, or 23 units was the second one, then 22, then 40, and just so on and so on. Then we met a guy who taught us how to do 200-unit apartment complexes. And so I started taking my money and investing in other syndicators, other people that were going to put the deals together. They put the deals together, I gave them my money, and this is when life really got good, because I literally didn't see those apartment complexes. At one time, I was invested in 11 apartment complexes, almost 4,000 units. I had only seen, literally driven by, maybe 4 or 5 of them. I'd only been inside 2 of them, and that was just for meetings, investor meetings, it was completely passive. I did absolutely nothing. I didn't have, keys to the front door, or I did nothing. It was totally passive. And there's my path from wholesaling to flipping and wholesaling to buying single-family rentals to buying small apartment complexes to syndicating to buy more small apartment complexes, and then eventually investing in other syndicators who were buying 200, 300, 400, 500 plus unit apartment complexes. So that's the path I took. And again, all of this is covered in our 2-day class in detail and throughout the year, especially the laws on syndication, the laws on, compliance. We have attorneys come in and speak every year. We have CPAs come in and speak every year, multiple times every year, as a matter of fact, so that you understand that and do that properly and don't end up in jail. And I don't want to scare you. I just want to scare you enough that you follow the stinking rules. Follow the rules. Strictly honor the laws the way they're written, because they're written that way for a reason, to protect people. Follow those laws. Stick to compliance, and you can literally go out and buy 200 units. There's many of you out there who could make yourself financially independent in one deal. It would take you 6 months to do it. I'm not kidding you. There's many of you out there working 40, 50, 60 hours a week right now that have enough money in the bank and enough credibility, and you are the right person. You could go out and buy a 200, 300 unit apartment complex within the next 6 months and be financially independent. It's amazing. I've seen couples do it. I've seen individuals do it. It's amazing. Real estate is the most powerful tool to achieve financial independence that you're going to see anywhere in the marketplace. So there's my path. There's how I started with bad credit, no money, and ended up invested in over 4,000 single-family homes and apartments over my 27 years. If you've got a question about anything that I said, email me. It's asksteve@getrealwealth.com. asksteve@getrealwealth.com. All right, one of my CPAs, Nathan, sent me an article, and here's another reason why you want to own some real estate. In this case, these syndicated deals that I talked about. The reason you want to is because this article is it's a positive article, and I'm going to be negative about it, because I don't like the way financial planners spin things. And this has been spun off as if it's something positive. It's 4 reasons people succeed in retirement. Want to create a prosperous and happy retirement? Follow the lead of those who've done it before you. Well, there's my sales pitch, every real estate group's sales pitch. Imitate successful people. Who is it? Andrew Carnegie said it 100 years ago. Imitate successful people. That's how you succeed. Here's what they say. The first thing, and this one I totally agree with, is that these people don't retire, and these people who thrive and are successful in retirement don't retire and do nothing. They find purpose in their retirement. So here's the number one thing that people do to be successful and to thrive in retirement and live past that 3-year life expectancy that white males have in retirement. And when you have your job, it anchors you by adding structure and purpose to your week. It also provides social interaction. If you don't replace your career with meaningful activities, you could find yourself feeling isolated and lost. And loneliness increases your risk of heart disease, obesity, Alzheimer's, as well as anxiety and depression. Decide today what you love to do. Remember, I'm always preaching, find your passion. What are you on this earth to do? How are you here to help and serve others? and continue to do that in your retirement. You may only do it 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, but you're still doing something. That keeps you connected, it keeps you structured, keeps you on your goal. Next thing, and here's the one that they started saving on their first job. That's a problem, isn't it? How many of you have been saving since your first job? He kind of alludes in this article, that's the only way to do it. If you didn't start saving in your early 20s, you're probably not going to succeed with the saving strategy, which I have said over and over again doesn't work. So if you didn't start saving when you were 21, the odds are highly against you that you'll be able to save enough money by the time you retire to retire. Third, they saved out the wazing. And I hate this strategy too. Here's what they're saying. When you're young, your 40s and 50s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, don't enjoy life. Save your pennies. Don't go to Vegas. Don't take that cruise. Don't go to Greece. Save everything so you have those golden years. So when you're 65, 70 and you retire, you can enjoy your retirement. Are you kidding me? Your body's totally different at 65 and 70. It's not the same. Sorry, I'm 55. I can tell you things are changing. Don't like it, but I'm sure as heck going to admit it so I can protect you from making the mistake that most people make, which is putting off living now to live in the future. They think that retirement, yeah, I want to go to Greece. I'll do that when I retire. I want to take a cruise. I'll do that when I retire. Bull. Go figure out how to make some money so that you can do it now while you're young and can enjoy it. And the fourth thing, they kept their savings invested through market swings. In other words, they didn't spaz and pull their money out when the market crashed. This is another concept that I hate. It's the, hey, you didn't lose money if you don't sell. Yeah, your stocks went down from $1 million to $400,000. You didn't lose money if you don't sell. Bull. Get your money out of speculative gambling things like the stock market. Get it into a true investment like real estate. And you can retire at any age and do what you want. Remember, I don't like the word retirement. I like the word financially independent. All right, thanks for listening.
This has been the GetRealWealth.com radio show. Please remember that this show is for entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as legal, tax, or investing advice. Always get a professional opinion before making any investment decision. To find out about the mentoring and consulting at Real Wealth Academy, visit GetRealWealth.com and attend one of our free introductory workshops on real estate investing. That's GetRealWealth.com. Thanks for listening and have a great rest of your day.